You know that feeling when you walk into a room and immediately regret every decision that led you there? That was me, standing in the grand ballroom of the Westmore Hotel, watching my ex-husband Trevor slow dance with his new wife Candace like they were the only two people in the world. She was draped in gold, literally a gold sequin dress that caught every light in the room, and he had his hand pressed against the small of her back that same way he used to touch me, except now he looked happy about it. They were glowing, and everyone was watching them, smiling at them, probably thinking what a beautiful couple they made. And there I was, standing by the bar in my simple black dress, clutching a glass of champagne I hadn't even sipped, wondering why I let my best friend Rochelle convince me that coming to this charity gala was a good idea. Let me back up. Trevor and I were married for 12 years. 12 years of me working night shifts at Memorial Hospital, coming home smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion while he chased his dream of opening a restaurant. I believed in him, I really did. I helped him write his business plan at 3 in the morning between my shifts. I co-signed loans when the banks wouldn't give him a chance. I ate ramen for months so we could save for the deposit on the restaurant space. And when he finally opened Savory, this upscale soul food place downtown, I was so proud. I thought we'd made it. I thought all those years of sacrifice meant something. But somewhere between the grand opening and the five-star reviews, Trevor started looking at me differently. Or maybe he stopped looking at me at all. I'd gained weight over the years, 60 pounds of stress eating and night shift vending machine dinners. My hair was always in a bun because I didn't have time to do anything else with it. I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize myself, but I told myself it didn't matter because we were building something together. Except we weren't. He was building something, and I was just the foundation he'd decided to demolish once the structure was stable enough. I found the text on a random Tuesday. Candace, his hostess, 26 years old, size 4, light skin, long straight hair down to her waist. The messages weren't even trying to be subtle. I confronted him that night, and you know what he said? He said he needed someone who took care of themselves, someone who made an effort, like 12 years of sacrifice wasn't effort enough. The divorce took 8 months and cost me almost everything. He fought me on the house I'd helped buy with my nursing salary before the restaurant even existed. He kept Savory, kept the success, kept everything we'd built, and he got Candace, who moved into our bedroom before the ink on the divorce papers was even dry. That was 18 months ago, and 6 months ago, I decided I was done being bitter. I started therapy, I changed my shifts so I could actually sleep at night, I joined a gym, not to look like anyone's version of beautiful, but because I wanted to feel strong. I lost the weight, not for Trevor, but because I was tired of carrying around physical proof of my pain. I cut my relaxed hair off and went natural, learned to love my coils and my curl pattern. I got promoted to head nurse in the cardiac unit. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, and I was doing fine. I was doing better than fine. But then the hospital's annual charity gala came around, and because Savory is one of our major donors and handles all the catering, Trevor was going to be there with Candace, and every part of me wanted to skip it. Rochelle wouldn't let me. She showed up at my apartment with a black dress she'd bought for me, did my makeup herself, and said, "You are not letting that man steal one more thing from you, not even your confidence." So there I was. The moment Trevor spotted me across the room, his whole face did this complicated thing. First surprise, then something that might have been appreciation, then he caught himself and pulled Candace closer. They made their way through the crowd like visiting royalty and somehow, inevitably, ended up in the same conversation circle as me. Trevor looked me up and down with this expression I couldn't quite read and said, "Nicole, wow, you look different. Are you eating enough?" And Candace giggled, actually giggled like he'd said something charming instead of insulting. Then he dropped the bomb. "We're expecting, by the way." His hand went to Candace's flat stomach and she beamed up at him like he'd just given her the moon. I congratulated them. My voice didn't even shake. I said all the right things, smiled the right way, and then excused myself to the bar because if I stayed there one more second, I was going to break. I ordered another champagne I wouldn't drink and just stood there breathing, reminding myself that I was fine, that his happiness didn't diminish mine, that I'd moved on. I watched that entire interaction. Your grace was remarkable. I turned and found a man in a charcoal gray suit sitting on the bar stool next to mine. He was handsome in that understated way, clean-cut, warm brown skin, close-cropped beard, eyes that looked like they actually saw things. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Grace, I wanted to throw my drink in his face. He smiled. But you didn't. That's the difference between grace and instinct. Grace is choosing the harder path. He extended his hand. Julian Monroe. The name tickled something in my memory, but I couldn't place it. I shook his hand. Nicole Harris.
We talked. Really talked. Not the surface-level gala small talk I'd been enduring all night, but real conversation. He asked what I did, and when I said I was a nurse, he didn't do that thing people do where their eyes glaze over. He leaned in, asked what unit, what kind of cases, what made me choose cardiac care. I told him about Mrs. Patterson, an 83-year-old woman who'd survived 3 heart attacks and still did crossword puzzles in her hospital bed, swearing she'd make it to her great-grandson's graduation. I told him how she made it, how I cried when she was discharged. He listened like my words mattered. Then he told me about his mother, how she died from complications of lupus when he was 19, how the nurses at her hospital had treated her with more dignity and compassion in her final weeks than most people had shown her in life, how he'd never forgotten that, never forgotten them. That's why he was here tonight. He'd just made a major donation to the hospital's research wing. And suddenly I remembered. Julian Monroe. The hotel mogul, the man who owned luxury properties in 15 countries, the Julian Monroe. And he was sitting at a bar with me, talking about his mother. The band started playing, something slow and jazzy, and couples drifted onto the dance floor. Trevor led Candace out first, of course. They positioned themselves right in the center, and he spun her under his arm like they were performing. Everyone watched, murmuring appreciation. I felt my chest tighten. Trevor had never wanted to dance with me at events like this, said he didn't like making a spectacle. Julian stood and extended his hand to me. Would you do me the honor? I stared at his hand like it might burn me. I'm not very good at dancing. It's been years. Then we'll be terrible together, he said, and his smile was so genuine, so free of agenda, that I took his hand. The moment we stepped on that dance floor, something shifted in the room. I heard the whispers immediately. Is that Julian Monroe? Oh my God, it is! Who's he dancing with? Julian either didn't notice or didn't care. He placed his hand on my waist, respectful, gentle, and led me into the rhythm. I was stiff at first, hyper-aware of everyone watching, but he started talking, asking me about the worst patient I'd ever had, and before I knew it, I was laughing, telling him about Mr. Chen, who kept trying to escape the hospital to go to his favorite dim sum place. The dance became secondary. We were just 2 people talking, moving together, and it felt easy. I caught sight of Trevor over Julian's shoulder. He'd stopped dancing. Just stopped, mid-floor, while Candace tried to pull him back into the rhythm. He was staring at us, at me, with an expression I hadn't seen in years, something raw and unguarded, regret, maybe, or realization. Candace followed his gaze, and her smile faltered. The song ended, but Julian asked for another dance. I said yes without thinking. This time I wasn't nervous. This time I let myself enjoy it. He told me about growing up in Baltimore, about his first job washing dishes at a hotel restaurant, about the owner who saw something in him and became his mentor. I told him about nursing school, about my mother who'd wanted me to be a doctor but supported me anyway when I chose a different path. We talked about grief and growth and the strange ways life surprises you. When we finally left the dance floor after the third song, my feet hurt, but my chest felt light. Everything was different after that. Hospital board members I'd never spoken to suddenly wanted to introduce themselves. The chief of surgery asked how I knew Mr. Monroe. Trevor appeared at my elbow, without Candace this time, saying we should catch up properly soon. His voice had that weird, tight quality it got when he was trying to control the situation. "How do you know Julian Monroe?" he asked, trying to sound casual. I shrugged. "We met tonight." His eyes narrowed like he didn't believe me, like there must be some angle he wasn't seeing. Julian returned with 2 glasses of wine, handed me one, and Trevor's whole demeanor changed. He laughed too loud, slapped Julian on the shoulder like they were old friends, started talking about the restaurant, about how he'd love to cater any future events Julian might be planning. Julian was polite but cool, gave non-committal responses, and kept his attention on me. I watched Trevor shrink a little with each dismissal. During dinner, Julian stayed at my table. He told stories about disastrous hotel openings and demanding celebrity guests that had my colleagues and me laughing until our sides hurt. He asked questions, remembered details, treated everyone at the table like they mattered. I kept catching Trevor watching from his table across the room. Candace had her hand on his arm, but she wasn't smiling anymore. She kept whispering things to him, and he kept nodding without really listening. When Julian gave his keynote speech, he talked about healthcare workers as the backbone of society. He spoke about nurses specifically, about their impossible hours and emotional labor, and the lives they save every single day without recognition. He looked directly at me when he said, "We celebrate surgeons and doctors, as we should, but we forget the people who hold patients' hands through the fear, who remember their names, who show up shift after shift to do the hardest work most of us could never handle." The room erupted in applause. I felt tears prick my eyes. Across the room, Trevor's jaw was clenched so tight I could see it from where I sat. As the gala wound down, Julian walked me to the valet. The night air was cool and perfect, and I felt like I was floating. "Thank you," I said, "for tonight, for the dances, for everything." He shook his head. "I should thank you. I almost didn't come tonight. These events usually feel so hollow, everyone wanting something, no one saying anything real. You were the first genuine thing about this entire evening." He pulled a business card from his jacket pocket and held it out. "If you ever want to have coffee and complain about ungrateful people, call me. No pressure, just an offer." I took the card. Our fingers brushed, and he smiled. Then he did something that felt pulled from another era. He lifted my hand and kissed it, just once, barely a touch. "Good night, Nicole." My car arrived, and as I waited for the valet to bring it around, I saw Trevor and Candace by the Mercedes. They were arguing, her voice high and tight, his hands gesturing in frustration. She kept pointing back at the hotel, probably talking about Julian, about me. Trevor was trying to calm her down, but even from a distance I could see he was distracted. He kept glancing toward the valet stand, toward me. Our eyes met for just a second before my car pulled up. I got in, tipped the valet, and drove past them without looking back. I didn't call Julian right away. Part of me wanted to, but a bigger part of me needed to just sit with the evening, with how it felt to be seen again, to be valued. I went back to my life, my shifts at the hospital, my patients who needed me, my apartment that I'd finally made feel like home. I put Julian's card on my refrigerator, held by a magnet, and looked at it sometimes while drinking my morning coffee. 2 weeks later, I ran into Trevor at the grocery store. He was alone, wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, looking more like the man I'd married than the polished version he'd become. He saw me in the produce section and did a double take. For a moment, I thought he might pretend he hadn't seen me, but then he walked over. "Hey," he said, "how are you?" "Good," I said, and meant it. "Really good." He nodded, shifted his weight. That was something. It was nice, I agreed, selecting avocados. So are you seeing that guy, Julian Monroe? I looked at him then, really looked at him. His eyes were tired. There was a stain on his shirt. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Why would that matter to you, Trevor? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out, because what could he say? That he was jealous? That he made a mistake? That Candace was pregnant and miserable and nothing like he'd imagined? None of it would change anything. None of it would give back the years he'd taken from me. Take care of yourself, I said, and I meant that too. I finished my shopping, paid, and left. I didn't look back to see if he was watching. Here's what I learned that night at the gala, what I'm still learning. Revenge isn't about making someone hurt the way they hurt you. It's not about getting even or proving a point. Real revenge, the kind that actually heals you, is about getting yourself back. It's about standing in a room full of people who watched you fall apart and showing them you rebuilt yourself into something stronger. It's about a man seeing you shine and realizing too late that he'd been standing in your light. Whether I call Julian or not isn't the point. Maybe I will. Maybe we'll have coffee and it'll lead somewhere, or maybe it'll just be two people who shared a moment at a charity gala. Either way, I'm okay. I'm more than okay. Because that night, dancing under those lights with everyone watching, I remembered who I was. Not Trevor's wife, not someone's ex, not the woman who wasn't pretty enough or thin enough or enough, period. Just Nicole, strong, whole, complete, free. And that moment when Trevor's face crumpled as he watched me dance, when I saw the regret flash through his eyes, that wasn't the revenge. That was just the echo of his own choices catching up to him. The real victory was already mine. I'd survived him. I'd survived losing everything and built something better from the ashes. I'd learned to love myself again, learned that my worth was not determined by who chose to stay or leave. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. It's showing up. It's being undeniably, unapologetically yourself. It's letting go of the bitterness and choosing joy instead. And if someone happens to see what they lost along the way, well, that's just a bonus. Because by the time they realize, you're already gone, already whole, already free. And their regret, it's no longer your burden to carry. That's the real ending, not a dramatic confrontation or a perfect new romance, though both have their place. The real ending is simpler and somehow more profound. It's me waking up in my own apartment, going to a job I love, looking in the mirror and recognizing finally, completely, the woman looking back at me. Strong, worthy, enough. Always enough, with or without Trevor, with or without Julian, with or without anyone's validation or approval. That's the revenge. That's the victory. That's the dance.